The Night of Ash and Wings. A Bigfoot legend in Fire 3 knocks in the red ash. The valley was wrapped in blazing red ash, swirling like ribbons of death in the wind. The air was thick, stifling with heat. That summer, the western forest had burned for 3 days and 3 nights, swallowing trees, streams, and every trace of green. In the valley stood a lonely farmhouse, weathered and trembling like a ghost against the sea of fire. It belonged to a young widow named Maren. Inside, she clutched her little boy Eli, breathing hard in the smoke-filled room. The roof tiles had cracked and fine ash sifted down, covering the worn wooden table. Their brown dog Rusty howled, claws scraping against the floor. Outside, trees crashed to the ground and sparks shot skyward like flaming arrows. Then bam! A strange sound struck the outer wall of the porch. It wasn't falling branches, nor was it tumbling stone. The sound was solid, heavy, and deep, making the whole house tremble. Rusty tucked his tail and growled. Eli buried his face against his mother's chest, trembling. Before she could steady herself, bam! A second knock. Slower, heavier, as if a giant hand was patiently calling. The fire outside hushed for a moment, as though the whole forest had stopped to listen. Maren's hands shook as she gripped the old axe, leaning by the door. Then bam, a third knock. This one so deep it seemed to shake her very heart. Every sound fell silent. Ash stopped falling. Even the wind held its breath. Only the pounding of her own heartbeat filled her chest. Maren swallowed hard, drawing a breath through the smoke, and slowly opened the door. Smoke poured in thick and heavy. And there on the porch lay a single feather, white as snow the size of her hand, its edges singed with black ash. Beneath it, the earth bore the print of a massive 3-toed foot pressed deep into the damp soil, still smoking. Rusty let out a long, mournful howl, then fell quiet, his eyes locked on the burning tree line. Through the smoke, Maren saw them 3 towering figures. One stood tall as a wall, one leaned protectively to the side, and one small and trembling clung close. They did not advance. They did not turn away. They simply stood there, unmoving, their breath rising with the ash, their eyes glimmering faintly through the red haze. Maren pulled Eli close, her heart heavy with the sense that destiny itself was waiting for her answer, to open the door wide or to close it forever. Part 1. Opening the door to destiny. The old wooden door creaked as it swung open, letting in heat and smoke that stung Maren's eyes. She gripped the axe with both hands while Eli clung to her dress, choking back sobs. Rusty, their loyal dog, kept growling but dared not leap forward. His tail was tucked tight against his belly, eyes fixed on the darkness outside. The 3 towering figures stood motionless, carved against the firelight like statues. Even by the flickering glow of the burning forest, Maren knew at once they were not human. Shoulders broad as stone walls, their dark fur streaked with ash, their breath rising in thick white clouds against the red sky. A gust of wind blew through, and for a moment she saw the smallest one most clearly shaking, sniffling, its tiny hands clinging to its mother's leg. Wide, dark eyes shimmered in the haze, terrified yet pleading. Maren's heart clenched. She knew those eyes. They were the same as Eli's during nights of fever when he had shivered and begged, "Mama, don't leave me." In a rush, the past came flooding back. Her husband's face covered in soot the day of the mining accident. She had stood helpless, Eli's small hand clutching hers, begging for a miracle she could not give. She had lost her man then, and now another child stood on the edge of being lost. A sharp crack split the night. The porch beam gave way, fire licking at the roof. Eli screamed. Rusty howled. Maren's eyes darted wildly. Then she saw it again, the gift left upon the porch. The great white eagle feather untouched by flame, though ash smoldered all around. A message. A sign she knew this was not chance. This was destiny knocking at her door. Lowering the axe, her heart pounding like a drum, she pulled Eli close and whispered, "Son, I'm going to open the door. Whatever happens, trust me." Her trembling hand grew firm as she pushed the door wide. Ash swept inside. Through the thick smoke, the great shapes of the Bigfoot parents shifted back a step and gently nudged a smaller form toward her. The little one stumbled forward, collapsing on the threshold, coughing and choking. Its singed fur reeked of smoke, its body trembling fever-hot breaths, shallow and broken. Without another thought, Marin cast the axe aside and dropped to her knees. She gathered the creature in her arms. Its chest rose and fell in ragged waves. Eli stared in awe, then reached out with his small hand, patting the creature's back softly, an unspoken comfort. The Bigfoot parents did not move. They remained at the edge of the ashen yard, their eyes deep and watchful. No growls, no rage, only waiting, only trust. Marin carried the little one inside, laying it down by the fading fire. She poured water, draped a damp blanket across its body, listening as its ragged breathing eased. Eli fetched a cup and pressed it into the creature's trembling hand. And for one fleeting moment, the young Bigfoot lifted its gaze, its dark eyes trembling, but lit with hope. Outside, the wind shifted. The flames surged higher, turning the sky blood red. Rusty barked sharply, warning of danger. Marin knew. Her choice had opened a road with no way back. That night, in a crumbling farmhouse, two worlds once divided by fear were bound together by the fragile thread of survival. Part 2. The fire within the ashes. The house reeked of smoke ash, coating every beam overhead. Yet in the corner, a small flame still flickered. Marin quickly fed the coals, its light casting a tired but steadfast glow across her face. On the worn wooden floor, the young Bigfoot lay curled beneath a wet blanket, its chest rising in uneven rhythm, each cough rasping in its throat. Eli sat close still, holding the cup of water. Carefully, he lifted the creature's head and tried to tip tiny sips against its lips. Water spilled down its singed fur, but then came a faint sound, a weak breath drawn in. The black eyes fluttered open, blinking as if trying to recognize the world. Rusty gave a low bark, circled once, then lay down by the door. His ears stood tall, his body alert. Marin knew the dog had never tolerated strangers yet tonight. He neither snapped nor howled. He simply guarded. She understood his instincts, knew this one was no enemy. Outside, the wind carried the acrid scent of fire. The forest moaned like a wounded thing. But inside, the fragile rhythm of life slowed everything. Eli leaned closer, his eyes shining as the small, furred hand twitched. He whispered, "It's all right. You're safe here." Suddenly, the young Bigfoot's hand reached out and brushed Eli's wrist. Just the slightest touch, but it froze Marin's breath. Her world had felt empty, hardened by loss. And yet here her son and the child of the forest were bound by something words could never explain. She knelt, tending to the burns across its back. The skin was blistered red, but not deep. She dipped a cloth into cool water, pressing it gently, hearing the rasp of breath soften. Her hands, once used only for sewing and stirring porridge, were now tending to a creature of legend. The door rattled faintly. Marin glanced up. Through the gap, she saw them still, the two great shadows waiting. They had not charged forward, nor had they left. Their eyes glimmered in the smoke, fixed on her every move. Were they testing her, or begging her that gaze? It was the look of parents who had handed their child to a doctor, desperate between hope and despair. And in that moment, Marin understood. They had entrusted their child to her, whether in faith or in desperation. Eli suddenly broke into a smile, rare and pure after so many days of hunger and fear. He clasped the little hand and pressed it to his cheek. The dark eyes shimmered, filled with something like gratitude. Marin turned away quickly, wiping the tear that threatened her cheek. She had never believed the village tales that Bigfoot brought only doom. Yet now in her ash-choked home, a trembling giant child lay beside her son, and together they found warmth in one another. A sharp crack split the air, the roof timbers catching fire. Rusty leapt up, barking furiously. Marin pulled Eli close, whispering, "We must stay quiet. Whatever's out there, tonight we face it together." Outside, the red ash swirled, the forest roared with flame, and the two giants still waited. But within the walls of that weary house, for the first time in years, Marin felt her heart ease. because in that fragile breath of life, a single candle of hope had been lit, glowing in the heart of the fire. Part 3. The Forest Child and the First Smile. The fire in the stove flickered, throwing a wavering glow across a ceiling stained with smoke. The tiny room felt like an oasis in a sea of raging flame. Maren settled beside the young Bigfoot, her work-worn hand pressing a cool, wet cloth to its chest. Each ragged breath it drew tugged at her own heart. Across from her sat Eli. The fear had eased from his face. Now he held the cup of water with a steady grip, his eyes bright with a quiet resolve beyond his years. When the small furred hand twitched, he whispered, almost laughing, "It moved, Mama. It's alive." The young Bigfoot opened its eyes again. This time, instead of panic, its gaze moved slowly from Maren to Eli. Something kindled there, not an animal's wildness, but something like awareness. Maren drew a deep breath. That look carried her back to the day Eli was born, when her husband was still alive, the same pleading light asking to be loved, to be believed in. The locked door of her heart shivered on its hinges. Outside, the shadows of two giant forms still lay against the smoke and flame. They remained motionless like guardians at a gate. Once more, Maren understood they weren't invaders. They were parents, trembling as they surrendered their child to another's hands. Rusty gave a low growl, and then lay down beside the little one. He licked the big black-furred hand. The young Bigfoot flinched, then let out a small sound, something like a tired, breathy laugh. Eli laughed too, touching its hand with his own. In that instant, fear thinned and drifted away. Maren watched silent her son and a creature of legend, two children from separate worlds drawing breath together. Something rose within her, strange and bright, as if the deep pit of loss inside her were being gently filled. A heavy crash sounded in the distance, trees falling, the ground trembling, ash curling up into spirals. Eli startled and gripped his mother's arm. Maren spun toward the noise, heart pounding, but the young Bigfoot didn't shake this time. Bracing on its hands, it eased itself upright. Its dark eyes turned toward the sound, then back to Eli, and it gave a short, soft call, almost a message. "Don't be afraid." Maren went still. A creature the world had named a terror was comforting her boy in the simplest way, a language beyond words. Hot tears slipped down Maren's cheeks. She bowed her head and whispered, "Thank you." She didn't know if the little one could understand, but somehow she knew it had heard. Time slowed. The forest still moaned with fire, but in the house the hearth grew warmer. The young Bigfoot sat up on its own, now holding the cup Eli offered, drinking in trembling sips. Each drop that eased down its rough throat seemed to wash away a little of the invisible distance between the people of the valley and the people of the woods. Maren looked at Eli and saw a light in his eyes she had never seen before. He had once feared the dark, crying when the wind howled. Now, facing the monster the village spoke of, he smiled, proud and brave. Maren realized her boy was changing, and so was she. Once she had kept her door bolted against everything outside. Now she had opened it and let the impossible step in. Out on the porch, the Bigfoot parents shifted, their shadows tilted in the red smoke. Maren caught a familiar gesture, a great hand pressed to the chest, then lowered, a sign that looked very much like gratitude. She squeezed Eli's hand and whispered, "They trust us. And maybe it's time we learn to trust them too." Eli nodded, eyes shining. The young Bigfoot blinked slowly and let its head tip against his shoulder like a drowsy child seeking a friend. In that ash-dusted room on the edge between life and death, a truth came. Clear life was not only being saved, it was being transformed. The old ache in Maren's chest did not vanish, but it softened because she had found a new reason to keep going. The quiet belief that kindness could bridge two worlds that were never meant to meet. Part 4. Wolves in a Burning Night. A howl rose in the distance, long and keen, slicing through the heavy smoke like a knife. Rusty sprang up, his hackles high, a low growl rolling from his chest. Eli clutched his mother. The young Bigfoot tensed its eyes, going dark and guarded. Marin peered through the gap of the door. In the shimmering red haze of ash, dozens of green eyes glowed and drifted wolves driven from the flames, hungry and mean, their hunt now turning toward the farm. Another howl closer. Heavy footfalls circled the yard. Claws raked the weathered walls, leaving long, screeching grooves. Rusty barked in a frenzy, then slid beneath the table teeth, bared his body shaking. Marin tightened her hold on the axe and looked from Eli to the small creature. She whispered, "Stay behind me. No matter what happens, don't go outside." In the same breath, the door burst inward with a crash. Firelight spilled through as a great wolf lunged. Before Marin could raise the axe, a massive shape filled the doorway, the Bigfoot father. His roar shook the house. With a hand broad as a shield, he seized the wolf and hurled it back into the porch post. Bone snapped with a sharp crack. Howls erupted around the yard. The pack poured in like a gray flood claws, tearing fangs flashing in the red-dusted light. The Bigfoot father and mother took the doorway bodies like living walls. Their bellows rolled with the wolves' cries until the ground itself seemed to tremble. Marin shook, pulling Eli and the small one back. Suddenly, Eli broke free. "Mama, I have to give it back." He held the white eagle feather high and ran for the threshold, lifting the gift into the burning night. Eli, no, Marin screamed. A wolf sprang like an arrow, jaws open for the boy. Marin lunged after him, swinging the axe in desperate arc, but it was too close. A roar tore the sky. The Bigfoot mother threw herself between them, taking the full brunt of the strike. Bright blood spattered across the ash. She dropped to her knees, gathering Eli under her, shielding him with her body. Marin cried out and felt her heart splintering. The Bigfoot father howled, fury rolling like thunder. He crashed into the pack arms, sweeping like a storm, flinging wolves aside, his strikes gouging earth and stone. The wolves snarled and snapped, circling tighter, relentless. Marin dragged Eli and the young one back inside, tears mixing with sweat and soot. A terrible resolve settled in her chest. If it came to it, she would die here with her child. Suddenly, the small creature tore free and darted to the doorway. It let out a high, piercing cry, pointing toward its parents. The sound rang through the yard, and for a heartbeat the wolves hesitated. The Bigfoot father seized the moment, flinging one wolf clear, then driving a massive fist into the ground. The shock shuddered through the pack. His roar rolled into the trees, met by a faint but steady answer from the Bigfoot mother, blood on her chest, eyes still burning, her body sheltering Eli as if he were her own. Eli sobbed, clutching the eagle feather. Marin wrapped her arms around him, her voice hoarse. "They're fighting for us." Outside, the night burned like a red arena. Wolves cried. Bigfoot thundered, ash billowed to the sky. In that fierce instant, Marin understood tonight the line between human and legend had fallen away. All that remained was the will to protect life. She sank to her knees, pressing her forehead to the ashy floor, and prayed, "Lord, if you can still hear, keep them standing. Keep my boy alive." A long, tearing howl split the sky, then an unexpected hush. Marin lifted her head. Before her, the Bigfoot father still stood, blood running down his chest arms, spread wide across the porch, the pack edging back. Beside him, the Bigfoot mother pushed herself, upright eyes blazing, guarding Eli as if he were her own child. In that moment, Marin knew the battle wasn't over, but faith had been carved deep into blood, into ash, and into the hearts of all who fought there. Part 5. Marks in Charcoal. The wolves faded back into the burning forest, their howls dissolving into the night. Silence fell over the yard, only ash blood and the labored breath of survivors. The Bigfoot father slumped, fur-matted with soot and blood. The mother lay wounded on the porch, still wrapping an arm around Eli in a final instinct to protect. Marin gathered her boy, seeing in his eyes not fear anymore, but reverence and bond. The young Bigfoot singed, and trembling touched Eli's chest, a silent vow. The parents placed hands over their hearts and lowered them. No words were needed, thanks, farewell, a shared battle. Then, supporting each other, they melted back into the smoke, leaving only great footprints in the ash. At dawn, sunlight cut through the haze. On the porch, 3 blackened grooves marked the woodproof the night had been real. Eli placed the white eagle feather beside his father's photo. For Maren, the emptiness of loss eased, stitched by a bond that reached beyond fear. She held her son close. He whispered, "Mama, I'm not afraid of the dark anymore." Maren smiled through tears. From now on, every echo of 3 knocks would not be dread, but a promise that even in ash and fire kindness endures. A gentle reminder of kindness. The sun rose gently over the ashen valley. Maren sat on the porch with Eli asleep in her arms, the white eagle feather still clutched in his hand. Rusty lay curled beside them, breathing slow and steady. The house was broken, the air still thick with smoke, but what remained was life. She gazed toward the forest. No shadows, no sound, only the wind carrying a quiet warmth. And deep within, she knew they were still out there. The bond had been made. In the fire's fiercest night, she whispered, "I learned one truth: kindness is what keeps us alive." From that night on, whenever 3 deep knocks echoed in the dark, Maren and Eli would remember not fear, but a promise. Even among ashes, compassion endures. Don't forget to follow Bigfoot Tales for the next journeys, stories that just might change the way you see the world. And if you believe kindness can work wonders, share this tale, so someone else will remember we are never truly alone.